Hi, this is Nick Dawson, the editor-in-chief of Talkhouse Film, and you're listening to the Talkhouse Film podcast. Late last year, I emailed Joe and Kris Swanberg with a somewhat strange suggestion. Both Swanbergs had films at the forthcoming Sundance Film Festival. Kris with her naturalistic pregnancy drama Unexpected, and Joe with Digging for Fire, a star-studded exploration of a married couple's weekend apart. And I hit on the idea of Joe interviewing Kris for a podcast. My thought was that the way in which a husband and wife talk is different from how filmmakers usually discuss art and process, and that in their conversation they might reach some interesting places. As both Swanbergs were finishing their movies, it wasn't possible to do the podcast at that time, so we revisited the idea 6 months later, when Unexpected was released theatrically. A little more than a day after Joe had wrapped his latest film, 3 days after Unexpected had come out, and 2 weeks before the couple's new baby was to be born, husband and wife sat down in their home for a really frank and revealing conversation about the Sundance experience, selling a film, finding the right distributor, dealing with agents, taking meetings, shaping a career, and the challenges of being in a two-filmmaker household.
I guess my first question is, after doing two, under $10,000, really small, improvised movies, why write a script and why make a sort of quote-unquote bigger movie this time?
I felt a lot of anxiety with my first two movies. I think after I sort of felt like that was the way I should make movies, since you and I had done a lot of that stuff before, and it seemed like the natural way to kind of go about it. And also fun. I'd had a lot of fun doing it before, but I was never kind of in charge. And then when I was making It Was Great, But I Was Ready to Come Home, was really fun, and I have a lot of really great memories, and I really like that movie. But I also felt a lot of anxiety about how it was coming together and whether it was coming together, and there was it was like a very limited amount of time, because we were in Costa Rica for 4 weeks, and we had to kind of shoot everything and make it into a movie, and I was worried that we weren't doing that. And the same with Empire Builder. We went to Montana, I think only for how long were we there? 3 weeks? Maybe 2 weeks?
Yeah, I can't remember, but I think it was 10 shooting days,
yeah,
and some
really short
gap days in between for editing and stuff.
Yeah. And the whole time I was like, this is great. I'm having so much fun. It's very cool. I'm working with people that I love. We're getting good stuff. But I was, always in the back of my head, I was like, man, is this going to turn into a movie? And then, it kind of didn't. And we had to shoot more stuff in Chicago. And then it did turn into a movie. And I really liked the way it turned out. But with this story, I really wanted to get it right, because it's the story that I've told that's the most important to me. And, it was really nice to get that on paper and be able to kind of get people's opinions on it and go over it over and over and over again and make sure that it was exactly what I was trying to say. So the script part of it made sense to me, and I probably will do that from now on.
I remember you saying during the shoot that there's still scenes that don't work. You're still rewriting all the time. You're still...
Right.
Stuff ends up on the cutting room floor because story-wise it doesn't make sense. I guess I'm more curious, spending 18 months writing the script and then sort of getting into the realities of shooting a movie. What did the script actually do for you? What was the process of writing the script where you felt like it was different when you...
Because I when I wrote that first draft of the script, when Megan and I finished that first draft, I think we were still unsure about who these people were. And by the time I had finished, the 10th draft and we were in production, I was so confident about who these people were and what kinds of decisions they would make and what they would say and what they would do, that even when things didn't quite work on film, that worked on paper, I knew how to fix it. And I knew that I wasn't, taking a character to a place that they wouldn't go. I just felt so confident about all of that stuff that it became easier.
And I suppose it helps attract actors and money and stuff like that, right?
Definitely. I mean, certainly the script was a huge factor in that. I think, it's for you at this point with having so many films under your belt, people are, able to look at your other films and say, well, that worked. And I like the performances of this and I like these films, so I want to be a part of it. I trust him enough to be a part of whatever he does next. But for me, making those two small features, there wasn't enough there, I think, for me to just have an idea and get people, to be in the film.
Well, I guess I'm curious, like, why not just make another small feature? Like, what was going on for you as a person and an artist where you were like, I'm going to have a full crew, I'm going to have a script, like, I'm going to do a big production, like a proper movie production?
Because I want to make a career out of it. And my other two films, even though I'm really happy with them, I think they're really great. They didn't get distribution. They were, really small and felt small, and no one saw them. So I wanted this to be a bigger movie that people would see, and that's what it was. That's what happened.
So what was your Sundance experience?
It was amazing. I loved it. It was really cool to get into Sundance. I was like really, really happy. It felt like a big accomplishment. And the premiere was awesome. It was just like the best I could hope for. And the response was great. And I just like sat in the back of the theater after not having slept the night before out of excitement and watched everyone watch the film that I had made. And it was perfect. It just felt perfect.
The film or the experience?
The experience. It was great. It was exactly what I would hope it could be.
And so what's been the aftermath? If sort of like making this movie was an attempt, like a desire to treat your career seriously or to have a career or whatever your goals were, like what's it been like since then? Because I feel like a lot of filmmakers like sort of like hear the Sundance experience and the sort of story of like going to that festival and selling your movie or whatever else. Like, so what's been the reality of the last 6 months since Sundance?
Well, I think I was a little prepared for it not to be like the answer to all of my prayers, because we've just known so many people to go to Sundance with this expectation of like, now I've made it. And then to come back from Sundance and get like a little depressed. And so I was sort of prepared for that and kind of realistic about that. And feel like I have been this whole time. So, even though this movie was very big for me and feels very big to me, it's still a very small film comparatively. And I didn't take Sundance by storm, by any means. It wasn't like the most talked about film. It wasn't this year's Whiplash, etc. But I feel like I don't know. It's the first project that I've ever made where I'm 100% satisfied with it. Where I watch the film and I think to me it's perfect. It's exactly what I wanted to make. I set out to make it, and that is what it became. And so I'm so happy with that. And anyone that also likes it, it's like it's so exciting because I wasn't making it thinking, well, what will people like? Let me do all the things that people like. I was making it and saying, this is what I like. I hope people also like it too.
What happens immediately post Sundance? Like the festival ends, and what kind of emails start showing up?
Okay,
what kind of
like
phone calls start happening?
The first thing that happens is like you're wanting someone to buy your film. So I sat there in the premiere and saw a great response with a completely sold out screening, of course, and was like, this is the best thing that's ever happened. And then
Why do you say sold out screening? Of course,
just because everything at Sundance sells out. Yeah, not because of my film, but just because of everything at Sundance sells out. So it was a full theater and a fantastic response, and a great review. We had an amazing review in Variety that night, and it felt very exciting. And I was like, okay, like the emails for people that want to buy this movie are going to start coming in. And they kind of did, but it wasn't like a battle for who could buy the film at the highest price. And that was a little stressful. But then we found a distributor that we really liked, and they didn't buy the film for $3 million, but they bought it for a good amount. And
Who's the distributor?
Film Arcade. And
what was that experience like as
working
you got
with them or selling it to them?
getting multiple offers after your premiere and sort of deciding, okay, cool, we're not going to break the bank here. This film's not going to become
right.
This gigantic moneymaker overnight, but we have different distributors interested. Like, how do you land on the distributor who ends up putting out the movie?
We had, when it came down to it, we had two distributors that were interested. One was Film Arcade, and one was Magnolia, and Film Arcade was willing to pay a little bit more, and Magnolia just didn't seem that excited about it. And they have a reputation, and they put out more films. I was more familiar with Magnolia than Film Arcade, and you had worked with Magnolia, and we had a lot of friends that worked with Magnolia before, and I like them. But they, having the conversation with them on the phone, they weren't really passionate about the movie. That was, they were sort of like, yeah, it's good, was, kind of the attitude that I sensed. And Film Arcade was a lot more excited about it and liked it a lot more.
So you're like going with your gut. It's like an interpersonal feeling.
Yes.
You're like, these people like my movie more.
Yeah, definitely. And I think they did. And I don't know, I mean, who knows what it would have turned out like with Magnolia putting it out, but Film Arcade, I think put their all into the movie. And that's what I wanted. And also they didn't buy that many movies. They only bought 2 movies out of Sundance. So we had a lot of their attention, and that felt really good too.
And the movie opened this weekend. We're talking on Monday. So it's on 23 screens this weekend. What does that feel like? And what does it feel like? You sort of take your movie from festival to festival. You're there at every screening. Right. You're doing Q&As. Like, this is the point now where the movie just belongs to the world. It's kind of left your control. Like, are you curious what's going on in those cities? Do you not care? Do you care about New York and Chicago? Like, what are your feelings?
My personal feelings about it right now are just to not think about it too much, because it does feel really surreal, and because realistically, I don't think that many people are going to go to the theater in Orlando and watch this film. So I'm trying not to even look. It's also
at numbers and things like that.
At numbers and things like that. Yeah, I'm not even like, I didn't even go on Box Office Mojo to like check it out. I'm just trying not to even think about it, because I don't think it matters that much. I don't think it's not going to be a crazy film that like sweeps the nation. So it's, I hope that people go see it. I hope that a lot of people are renting on iTunes. That's obviously why I made the movie. I want a lot of people to watch it. But I feel already really good that it's opening, that it's like people are seeing it, and that people like it.
That sort of covers the Sundance experience and kind of what happened there. But now tell me, like, what happens to a filmmaker after Sundance? Like, you come home, you have agents now because of the script, right?
Right.
And the movie has played, it's gotten good reviews, it's gotten a distribution deal. What's the like next step in the filmmaker
after
journey?
Sundance, I came home and my agents were, we got a really good response out of Sundance. Every review is positive, every single one. So that was really good. And my agents, I'm at UTA, were like, great, now let's get you to LA to take a bunch of meetings. So they set me up with different production companies and studios and TV networks.
And when you say set you up, what does that mean?
It means that they set up meetings. So they had a screening at UTA and invited a lot of like industry to that screening. And that went really well. A lot of people came, and a lot of people left and said, this is so great. We want to work with her, or we at least want to meet with her.
Mm-hmm.
And so my agents were like, awesome, let's set up a meeting. Kris is going to be in town from, this date to this date. I think I went out there for like a week and a half or 2 weeks. And I had, 5 meetings a day where I went to different places and met with them, and they told me about what they were working on. We talked about my movie. They asked me what I was interested in, and then they were like, great, well, let us know when you have something, or we'll let you know when we want you to do something. And, all of those went seemingly really well. I had good conversations with everybody, and really liked a lot of the people. And then, and I think if I had been in a position where I had another script ready and I wanted, a studio to look at it or a production company to look at it, that would have been a different kind of scenario where I would kind of be pitching something. But I don't have anything ready. So I was sort of just going out there and feeling it out. And I feel still nothing directly came out of that stuff, but I still think it was really helpful because now I know kind of who I like and who I jive with for when I have something, or if they have something for me.
Do you have ideas about how you want your career to go, or right now do you just feel kind of open to what presents itself?
I think at first I felt really open to anything, and now after getting sent a lot of scripts that were on the same sort of budget level as Unexpected, I think it doesn't make sense for me to direct something that I didn't write at that budget level, at least nothing that I've seen, because anything that I've seen on that at that budget level, I'm like, oh, it's not quite what I would do. And I think it would just be easier to write something that I would want, that would be exactly what I wanted to make. But, I am interested in making stuff that's bigger, and certainly talking to people about doing stuff that's like on the studio level, which I think would be really fun.
Where does the desire to do bigger stuff come from, and what do you mean exactly by bigger? Like, what do you mean studio, like wide release studio movies?
Yeah.
And what's the appeal? Like when you think about making them and putting them out into the world, like what aspect of that is most exciting to you?
It's not something I could do on my own right now. And so it seems really fun to have the opportunity to like kind of play on that bigger scale. And it just sounds really exciting and really fun. And also, like from a financial standpoint, it would be really awesome to get paid, a couple $100,000 to direct a film. Sounds amazing, because it's not really viable to make, one indie every couple years and survive off of that salary.
I remember you saying that a lot of these meetings that you took after Sundance were people who were kind of presenting you scripts that were about women or about sort of women's issues, or, that kind of like people seeing Unexpected were like, oh, cool, let's show this woman all of our woman movies. Like, what was your experience with the industry post Sundance, and kind of like what their expectations of you were?
I think that was more of the experience I had with, one of the first agents that UTA set me up with was, he sent me a bunch of projects, and he sent me like a list of like 12 projects, and they were all like female focused, and that was a little obnoxious to me. And then but then I got a different agent, and they haven't been sort of doing that.
But you had to have that conversation where you were like, hey, I'm interested in all kinds of movies,
for sure.
Not just movies about women.
For sure. But I think that that's probably the same conversation that anyone would do anyone would have to have if they like had made a genre movie, for instance, and then all the scripts they're getting are genre movies, except that a drama about women shouldn't be a genre movie. You know what I mean? It shouldn't be like, oh, she's into horror movies. It was just like, no, I'm just into movies. This one just happens to be female focused.
I mean, in terms of this new project that you're writing, how much of the kind of response to and realities of Unexpected's like critical reception, like real normal people reception, like industry impact, etc., will influence the next thing that you write? Like, is there sort of like a purity to the writing process, or do you feel like as a filmmaker you're sort of taking notes from the Unexpected experience that you'll then apply to like how you write your next script and how you pitch your next project and so, like how you cast it and think about it? Like, what is it always for you, or are you kind of like...
No, it's not. I'm very business. I'm like definitely thinking about the business side of things, and definitely thinking like this, whatever this next script ends up being, like it has to be something that can appeal to actors of a certain level, and it has to be something that can appeal to investors, and it has to be commercially viable. And so I'm definitely not like, I don't care, I'm just going to make a small art movie and whatever happens and it happens. I'm like aware that it needs to be commercially successful. But I don't have, that doesn't feel like a compromise to me. That feels exciting to me to kind of weigh that stuff in and to make a good film under those terms.
And when you say all of that and sort of think of all of that, do you feel like that has always been the case for you? Do you feel like age, like getting older, factors into that reality? Do you feel like having made 3 films now factors into that reality? Like, where, I'm like curious where you feel like the mindset is coming, whether it's been an evolution in your career, or whether you feel like you've essentially always had the same attitude about it and that just is what it is.
I don't think I've always had the same attitude about it. I certainly didn't with my first 2 features. But yeah, I think I'm more interested now of it being of being like a viable career than I was before, where I can, have some success, have some career success and financial success within the industry. I'm more conscious of that than I have been before. I don't know if that's because of my age. Probably. For me, it's a lot of it does have to do with our own relationship, our personal relationship between me and you, and having kids and having a family, and being in a place, for me personally, being in a place where, I have to, because you're making more money doing projects, it only made sense for me at the time to hold off and to take care of the family and the home and et cetera.
The time meaning like
right.
Around 2010 when Jude was born?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then, that didn't satisfy me. And the only way that works just on a logistic level is if I'm making my own stuff that's financially viable. Is the only time it makes sense for us to switch those roles is if I'm making stuff that's going to make money. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense for
or at least to switch
for you
those
to
roles,
take times off.
Yeah, at least to switch those roles for the extended period of time it takes to like really make a feature film.
Right.
Which is like several months straight of like dedicated labor.
Right.
Yeah, or
so
smaller kinds of movie. Like, it's really interesting because some of the stuff you and I talk about, like there are movies that I'm kind of like interested in making at all different levels. Like I still am interested in making $5,000
for sure
totally improvised movies. But for me, like the reality of those movies is like I can't spend 6 months making a $5,000 improvised movie. Like it has to be tucked into a period of time where I can be doing other work and stuff like that.
But you are really good at making like good movies that you're proud of in doing it in 3 weeks. And I'm not as good at that. And I feel like now I need to write a script, and that's how I'm going to make a film that I feel.
You
really
feel like
good about.
that'll be a constant part of your process now. Like a
Yes.
script is going to be always a key component.
Yeah.
So how does that time management factor into how you're thinking about your next project? Because you're 2 weeks away from having another baby.
Right.
There are projects that are kind of in the ether for you that maybe would start to engage you soon or soonish. Like, what do you in
mean
terms
like
of
studio stuff?
Yeah, or even your own writing on your project. Like,
Right.
you could hit a stride on that and suddenly feel
Right.
like you're on it and really engaged with it, and that you're going to want to like be spending more and more time
Right.
focusing on that. Like, how do you, I mean, just with the like practical realities, let's say, of breastfeeding and things like that, like just certain things that you're intending to do, like how much are you thinking about time management these days, and how much are you kind of thinking about your schedule over the next year as you want to make more stuff and also be a mom?
Yeah, it's hard because you have so much stuff going on. So
I personally have,
yeah. So it's not as easy. It doesn't feel as easy anymore just because you have so much stuff on the horizon to be like, okay, cool. Once we can, pick our heads up after having this baby, once we can catch our breath, we'll just like trade off again, and I'll just spend time writing and stuff, and we'll alternate days, which is sort of like what we've done before, because you have so much stuff going on. It's gonna be a situation where like, we have to get childcare, which, going back to kind of like the whole what my movie's about, it means that I won't be with that kid, and I won't be with Jude, and that's a struggle for sure to like think about. But having been a stay-at-home mom for like 2 years with Jude, I just know that, and also having the experience of making Unexpected and being away from him for a month at a time or weeks at a time when I had to travel, etc. I just know that I prefer that, and that I feel more satisfied in life doing that. So I'm less
doing the film stuff.
Doing the film stuff. So I'm less conflicted about it than I was.
Yeah, like the trade-off of like childcare and all of that stuff feels worth it to you.
Yes.
To like keep making your own work and
yes.
sort of
because I've seen the other side of it. So there's not as much anxiety. So even though it's hard to leave Jude, even though it was hard to be in production on Unexpected and to not see him, and to know that he missed me, and to like, for when he saw me to like cry and say that he missed me, it was like heartbreaking. But now that I'm on the other side of it, it's fine, and he's fine, and he's great, and I'm great. And so I feel good about it for the next one, that's sort of a compromise that I feel okay being on that side of.
Right. Better to have a mom who's satisfied and happy
Right.
and engaged and sometimes not around
Right.
than a mom who's always around and constantly frustrated and wishing she was doing something else.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I very much feel like children cannot be at the center of the universe all the time. Like I think it is really good for Jude that we had that period of time where I was the stay-at-home dad and you were making your movie. Like that's setting a kind of precedent.
Me too,
for him.
but I think it'll be harder, and we'll have a harder time, and he'll have a harder time if you're in production on something and I also have something going on.
Right.
Because we haven't experienced that yet.
Right. Well, we haven't. I mean, my personal feeling is like I would hope that just doesn't happen. I mean,
Me too.
I'm like flexible enough that and all at this point, like almost all of my work is self-created, which means that I'm like really I have a lot of say over when it happens.
Well, I talked to Kobe about this a lot, to Kobe Smulders, who's in my movie, because she's married to Taron Killam, who also works, and like they have to deal with it a ton.
Yeah.
And they're always, they're like very focused on being parents, and like that's super important to both of them, and they want to have like a normal family, but they're like actors. So if both of them get opportunities at the same time, which they just went through last month, they were in like totally different places. One had one kid and a nanny, the other one had the other kid and a nanny, and like they took those jobs, and that also sucks, because I don't know. It's just, I think we haven't had like a nanny situation, but even when we took our babysitter Kim to Sundance, it was hard for us both to have films there. And even though Jude was with us, it was hard to be like, we're not going to see you for like 2 days. We're going to be in and out.
Harder for you than it is for me.
Yeah.
You have mom instincts that I don't have.
It's true.
My attitude typically is like, Jude's fine.
Yeah. I had a really tough time with it. It was a bummer. And I wanted to be, any time that he's like, I miss you, can't you stay home? Cancel your thing,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh God, I want to do that. I should do that. And it's like a real struggle.
Yeah,
to
I'm just
deal
like,
with.
stop being so manipulative, dude.
Yeah, that's like totally.
You're hurting your mom's feelings.
That's
Cut
like
it out.
totally the difference between dads and moms. I think like it's just not less of a struggle for you.
Yeah. Well, it's a different it's like just a different approach to family. I mean, it's very different than my upbringing, and I think it's really different than your upbringing. So that's the other kind of adjustment that we're making, is that neither of like if either of us had been raised in families who worked in the entertainment industry, it would be more normalized. But we both had like pretty straightforward, like suburban.
You especially, like, your mom stayed home with you for the whole time you were a kid.
Yeah. So we're kind of like both making it up on the fly in terms of what it's supposed to look like. And I feel like every time we're weighing it against our own upbringings, it just like busts at some point,
but
because you're just like, oh, it's so different at this point.
But what's good is that our kid is like really a great kid and isn't
subjective.
Well, he's not like, he hasn't gone through, he doesn't have like emotional problems or like developmental delays or things that we might then say like, oh, it's because we're never around him. Like you know what I mean? We sort of are like, no, we have a really well-adjusted kid who is flexible and easygoing and sort of seems to be really happy with the way our life is.
Yeah. Well, he doesn't know anything else, which is the great thing about kids. I mean, they'll just, you could raise them in a closet and they would just think that was normal.
No, if you raise them, that's not true. If you raise them in a closet, they might think it was normal, but they would be pretty messed up.
Yeah. Well, sure. The reality is that this new baby is coming any minute.
Right.
But like, where's your mental space right now? Like, what are you thinking about when you have time to yourself to sort of like have your artistic wheels turning?
I think like, because the movie just got released on Friday, that was like a big, mark on the calendar that was approaching for a long time. And, I've been working on Unexpected for a really long time. I think Megan and I started writing this movie in 2012.
Yeah.
And so this has been sort of like happening and always in the horizon. And now it just got released on Friday. And I think that I would probably have like a little like postpartum depression in the film sense if I didn't have this baby coming right now. So
meaning the baby is giving you something to focus on,
well,
so that you're not even really thinking about the fact that the movie's like out now.
Yeah, so like, I've been working on this movie since 2012, and now it just got released, and I've been pregnant for 9 months, and that's like about to happen. And so now that the movie's over, I'm like, okay, time to finally, like for the first time, just focus on this baby coming and focus on being pregnant. And my job right now as like a pregnant person who's 2 weeks away from having a baby is to like rest and like hang out. And so I'm trying to allow myself to do that. But of course, I'm like totally still thinking about my career, etc. And I have like a studio thing that I'm trying for, that I've been working on, pitching for, and having conversations about, and taking meetings for, etc. And so I'm doing that. And then I have, the basics of a really good outline for the next project that I want to write. So with this particular thing, I'll probably do it when the script feels ready. But I want to write the script. I'm like eager.
Yeah. But you're not going to just like will a movie into existence once a year.
No. I mean, with
the way that I kind of do. You know
well,
what I mean?
You do it more than once a year. Yeah. I mean, you have like an idea for a movie and you're like, cool, who wants to do this movie with me? And then you find some people that want to make it with you, actors. And then you're like, great, let's do it as soon as possible. And you can move really fast and make stuff that you're excited about. You also lose interest very quickly on things, and I don't as much. So if you have to sit around on an idea for a year, you're going to have 20 ideas in the meantime and want to make that other stuff. And that happens to you a lot. And that didn't happen to me with Unexpected, is I was like focused on that. And that was the project that I wanted to make. And I had other ideas kind of in the meantime, but I wasn't like, oh, I'm not interested in this thing anymore. I was still really focused on it. So you and I are different in that way.
Yeah, but when you say you want to make a movie a year, it sounds like we're the same. Like, I guess that's what I'm curious about.
Yeah,
like,
but you make like at least you make 3 movies a year. You make more than one movie a year.
I think, well, this year I'll have made 2, but I do think that the last, over the sort of like broad span of it, like a movie a year is about the rhythm that I end up being on.
I don't know exactly how I'm going to do it, but I will say that I don't feel good if I'm not working on something. I feel kind of gross. I feel kind of like, I don't know. I feel like I'm not doing anything with my life if I'm not working on a project. So I have to be working on a project or have something in the works in order to feel right.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I can't wait to see what happens. I'm excited about whatever movie you make next. No, it's true. Any final words for filmmakers or soon-to-be moms? Any wisdom you can impart from the particular position you're in, where your movie just came out and a baby is about to come out?
Man, I don't know, because I'm so scared and anxious about it.
About the baby?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't have any advice. Maybe people have advice for me.
Yeah. If you have advice, please email Kris. She is open to any
open to advice.
All right. Thanks for talking to me.
Okay, bye.
This is Nick Dawson from Talk Has Film, and you've been listening to Joe Swanberg and Kris Swanberg on the Talk Has Film podcast. Unexpected is out now in theaters through the Film Arcade. Digging for Fire is released August 21st through The Orchard. Both come highly recommended. The episode was engineered by Sean Kennedy and edited by Elia Einhorn. For more filmmakers talking film and TV, visit thetalkhouse.com/film. Subscribe to Talk Has Film and Talk Has Music podcast on iTunes, where you can find all our previous episodes. And while you're there, please rate and review if you can.